As I began to call for social reforms within the Muslim community, I faced some challenges that were not only unexpected, but also very strange to me at first. I spend many hours a day criticizing Islamic extremists or advising government officials against them and their strategies. Yet, a group of non-Muslims, whom I later came to know as the far left, stood against me to try to prevent me from doing so. This was very confusing to me, because I thought that the Western world would be happy that an imam was criticizing the extremist elements within Islam and calling for social reforms. So, here's where I am right now. Leftists say that ISIS and terrorism have nothing to do with Islam. I say, okay, great, nothing to do with Islam. So I continue to criticize the ideology of ISIS, but they accuse me of insulting Islam. But you just said ISIS doesn't represent Islam. So I ignored them and continued to criticize the Islamists. And before I knew it, I was being labeled far-right, neo-Nazi. And I look like Osama bin Laden more than I do a Nazi or far-right. But nevertheless, so I went on to conduct some research into what they stand for. These far leftists, what do they stand for exactly? So I discovered that they don't like having their genders assumed. So I thought to myself, that's kind of interesting. I can't assume your gender, but you can assume my political identity. You see, these are the very groups trying to silence us. In 2018 alone, Facebook suspended me 8 times and completely unpublished my page 2 times. People wish to live in states based on secular humanist principles. I myself was born a refugee. My family fled from a barbaric theocracy in Iran. The gratitude and loyalty that we all feel towards the Australian people who gave us sanctuary knows no bounds. Still, the actions of a minority of Muslims in Australia have caused a growing number of the host community to react not just to overt terrorist attacks, but to behavior that is arrogant and contemptuous towards the nation that gave them a new home. I mention this because Australia has its roots in Western European values, and such arrogance is offensive to these values. Across Western and Northern Europe, I observe a growing negative reaction to Islamic immigration, a response that I fully understand. To try to restrict speech will not remove the negative reactions, it will only further feed a sense of betrayal among affected communities. In a situation where people feel their opinions are muzzled, this discontent festers underground. Where free speech is restricted, a great risk emerges. Indeed, a great one. The risk that ideas cannot be challenged in open and rational debate. That flawed or offensive ideas cannot be challenged in open, unrestricted dialogue. There is a growing belief in Europe that dark conspiracies are being hatched by elites to the detriment of the traditional inhabitants. This is a truly dangerous belief and can only be countered by freeing the population to speak their minds without restrictions. I urge you to reflect on this situation and at the very least encourage debate on what your people think of the present laws regarding freedom of speech.